hope you will feel that this is the environment which encourages you to perform at your best. You won't know that until it happens. But if it's a personal best, that is, you can be eminently proud of what you've achieved.
The morning sun had barely touched the gravel of Sandringham when Princess Anne arrived at the estate.
Happy Christmas!
Her car gliding silently past guards and courtiers alike. On the surface, it was another day of royal engagements, a familiar routine in the life of the monarchy. But those who knew the inner workings of the royal household understood that Anne's visits had a purpose far beyond ceremonial appearances. Every movement, every glance carried weight, measured in centuries of tradition, whispered orders, and careful observation. Behind the heavy oak doors, the palace breathed differently. Staff moved with quiet precision, eyes flicking toward the princess, waiting for her command. She had always been known for her exacting standards, but in these recent months, her authority had deepened, sharpened by the subtle tremors in King Charles's health. Advisors who once dictated the flow of meetings now deferred, silently acknowledging that the true balance of power had shifted. Anne did not seek headlines. She sought clarity, stability, and the uninterrupted continuation of duty. In the private study, she reviewed reports that spanned the spectrum of the monarchy's daily operations. From diplomatic visits to estate maintenance, nothing escaped her notice. Her presence was a stabilizing force, calm but unyielding. A secretary hesitated before presenting a particularly sensitive document. Anne's eyes, sharp and unwavering, caught the slightest hesitation. The message was clear. Precision mattered. Even the most minute oversight could ripple through the corridors of power. Outside, the world remained oblivious. Crowds lined the gates, waving flags, snapping photographs, unaware that the princess's quiet vigilance was holding together the delicate threads of the monarchy. Photographers captured her composed demeanor, her unmistakable posture of control, but few could guess the true weight of responsibility she carried. It was not ambition that drove Anne, it was duty, inherited and honed, tested now under unprecedented circumstances. Her phone buzzed with an encrypted message. A physician from Adam Brooks Hospital reported progress on King Charles's latest treatment, a carefully calibrated regimen designed to sustain him through increasingly taxing public duties. Anne read the note with the precision of a surgeon, noting the subtle changes in medication timing and engagement adjustments. She would relay the details to Prince William, ensuring continuity in decision-making without drawing undue attention. Later that afternoon, Anne moved to the private chapel, a place where few ever tread. She knelt briefly, not in prayer but in observation, tracing the path that generations of monarchs had taken before her. The air smelled faintly of beeswax and old parchment. From the vaulted ceiling, sunlight filtered through stained glass, casting fragmented colors across the marble floor. In that quiet, she felt the invisible weight of history pressing down, a reminder that every decision, every intervention carried consequences far beyond the palace walls. The princess had learned long ago that authority was not wielded in public fanfare but in measured action behind closed doors. Today, that authority extended across state affairs, ceremonial responsibilities, and the meticulous management of the royal household. Courtiers and advisors, many decades her junior, deferred to her judgments without question. Even the youngest pages, walking alongside Prince George during recent ceremonies, had come to recognize the princess's exacting standards. A sealed envelope awaited her in the private study. The handwriting was unfamiliar but deliberate, each loop and line signaling urgency. It was from the Archbishop of Canterbury, containing recommendations for interim adjustments in the event of King Charles's cognitive fatigue. Anne read carefully, absorbing every nuance. The suggestions were prudent, measured, but they required a steady hand to implement, a hand Anne knew could guide without alarming, adjust without disrupting, and maintain the crown's dignity while ensuring the monarchy's stability. She convened a brief meeting with senior aides, outlining the subtle changes. Engagements were to be redistributed, meetings staggered to avoid strain, and all communications with foreign dignitaries rerouted through a streamlined channel she controlled. Anne's voice, firm and composed, left no room for misinterpretation. Every word was calculated, each instruction a layer of assurance against chaos. The palace, seemingly calm, was now operating under her vigilant oversight. By late afternoon, Anne walked the corridors alone. The echo of her footsteps was almost ceremonial, a rhythm of authority and assurance. Each portrait on the wall, each tapestry, reminded her of the monarchy's continuity, the silent duty that bound generations. It was in these moments, unobserved by the public, that Anne's influence was most profound. She could steer policy, temper disputes, and anticipate crises long before they reach the media or parliament. Her power was invisible but absolute. A brief conversation over the secure line brought news from Prince William, who had just returned from a diplomatic call. He relayed details of a potential scheduling conflict that could compromise King Charles's rest. Anne listened, interjecting with questions that revealed subtleties he had overlooked. Decisions that might have escalated into public missteps were quietly adjusted. The monarchy moved forward seamlessly, yet the public remained unaware of the orchestration behind the scenes. In the evening, Anne inspected the archives. Documents spanning centuries lay in ordered stacks. Letters from past sovereigns, records of critical decisions, and directives that had shaped the kingdom. She paused over a particular file, one containing correspondences with Queen Elizabeth. A faint smile crossed her face. The words mirrored her own philosophy. Leadership required service, vigilance, and the willingness to act without applause. This was not ambition, it was responsibility incarnate. Her next stop was the private quarters where King Charles rested. She entered silently, acknowledging his presence with a subtle nod. The king's gaze was steady, aware that his daughter's guidance had been integral to the monarchy's continued functioning. A short discussion followed, focusing on minor adjustments and upcoming engagements. There was no overt tension, no drama, just precise, deliberate planning. The palace, as always, appeared tranquil to outsiders, but the machinery of governance had shifted subtly into Anne's capable hands. Later in the drawing room, Anne reviewed correspondence from foreign embassies. Invitations, thank you notes, and protocol queries were all filtered through her scrutiny. Every detail mattered. She noted the nuances in tone, anticipating reactions before they could materialize. For decades, she had honed this skill, a blend of observation, experience, and instinct, now vital to maintaining continuity during King Charles's intermittent absences. As twilight settled over Sandringham, Anne moved to the estate's terrace. The wind carried the scent of the surrounding garden, the faint hum of distant wildlife blending with the subtle creak of the palace. She allowed herself a moment of reflection. The crown, the family, the public eye, all demanded an unwavering commitment. Yet her service was not for accolades or recognition. It was for the institution itself, for the people it represented, and for the seamless passage of duty from one generation to the next. That night, Anne prepared a summary for Prince William and the Archbishop of Canterbury. The document outlined critical decisions, anticipated needs, and contingency plans. Each section was deliberate, composed with clarity that reflected decades of preparation. The monarchy would continue to function, every movement considered, every decision measured, without interruption. The final act of the evening was quiet but symbolic. Anne placed a candle in the chapel beside the imperial state crown, a gesture that required no announcement. The flame flickered, casting soft light over the glass case, illuminating the symbol of continuity. In that silent moment, the weight of centuries rested lightly yet firmly in her hands. Leadership, she knew, was often unseen, exercised in subtle actions that ensured stability without spectacle. By the time the moon rose high, Sandringham was still, save for Anne's final inspection of the corridors and chambers. Her footsteps traced the paths of monarchs past, a living link in the chain of responsibility. Outside, the world remained unaware of the quiet power that ensured the crown's integrity. Inside, Princess Anne had once again reminded the palace and the nation that true authority does not always command attention, but its absence would be immediately felt. And as the estate settled into night, a single thought lingered. The crown does not belong to any one individual. Its strength lies in stewardship, in vigilance, in the quiet courage of those willing to bear responsibility without a claim. Princess Anne's presence ensured that even in moments of uncertainty, the monarchy remained whole, resilient, and prepared for whatever history demanded next.